Scene script. Have you ever wondered about the jurisdiction of UCC and universal law? Let's delve into this intriguing topic. We live in a world that is governed by laws and regulations. These laws are not just confined to the constitutions of our respective countries, but they extend to a much broader sphere known as Universal Commercial Code, or UCC, and universal law. The UCC and universal law are like two sides of a coin. If you're involved in any form of commercial activity, you are under the jurisdiction of the UCC. This includes everything from running a business to driving a commercially registered vehicle. The UCC is the governing body that oversees all rules of commerce, making it the boss of all constitutional rules. But what happens when you are not involved in commercial activities? How do you fit into the grand scheme of things? This is where universal law enters the picture. Universal law, as the name suggests, is universal. It is above all constitutions and rules of law set by nations and governments. It's the law that applies to you when you step out of the commercial world. To put it simply, universal law means no loss, no harm, no damage to any living being. It's a law that respects and protects the rights of all living beings in the universe. When we are not involved in commercial exchanges, we operate under universal law. Interestingly, while nations and governments have limited jurisdiction, universal law is limitless. It's like the infinite sky under which we all live, irrespective of our geographical boundaries. So, whether you're a commerce student, a business owner, or simply a curious mind, understanding the UCC and universal law can offer a new perspective on how the world operates. It can help you navigate your commercial activities more effectively and understand your place in the universe. Understanding these laws can help you navigate your commercial activities more effectively. So, let's embark on this enlightening journey to understand these laws better. Stay tuned for the next segment where we will delve deeper into the intriguing world of UCC. Let's delve deeper into the Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC. In essence, the UCC is a comprehensive set of laws that govern commercial transactions. It's like the rule book for the game of commerce. And just like any game, if you're playing, you're under its jurisdiction. Let's break down what this means. Imagine you're driving a car. In the world of commerce, this car isn't just a vehicle, it's a commercial entity. By driving it, you become a driver, an occupation that requires a license. Your car needs a registered number plate, another commercial requirement. This is commerce in action. You're partaking in a commercial transaction every time you drive your car. But what if you're not driving a commercial vehicle? What if you simply want to get from point A to point B in your personal conveyance? Not a commercial vehicle? Well, this is where things get interesting. When you remove the registered number plate from your car and replace it with a universal law code number plate, your car ceases to be a commercial entity. It becomes a private conveyance. You're no longer driving, you're traveling. And traveling doesn't require a license. This is just one example of how the UCC applies to everyday situations. The UCC is everywhere, from the supermarket to the bank, from your job to your home. It's the backbone of our commercial world. But remember, the UCC only applies if you're engaging in commerce. So what happens if you're not? What happens if you're operating outside the commercial world? Well, that's where the universal law comes into play. That's the UCC in a nutshell, a set of laws that govern commercial transactions. But what happens when you're not involved in commerce? Stay tuned as we explore the fascinating world of universal law in the next scene. Now let's navigate the realm of universal law. Universal law, as the name suggests, is universal in nature, governing all living beings not involved in commercial activities. It's like the silent, omnipresent guardian watching over us as we go about our lives. So if you're not involved in commerce, you are under the universal law. But what does this exactly mean? Well, imagine a world where the laws of commerce don't apply to you. That's right, no more worrying about driver's licenses, registered number plates, or any other commercial regulations. This is because, under universal law, you're not driving a vehicle. Instead, you're conveying yourself from one point to another, using a private conveyance. In simple terms, you're traveling, not driving, and hence, the need for a driver's license is eliminated. Now you might wonder, how can this be? How can one law be superior to all others? The answer lies in the very essence of universal law. It is a law that transcends national borders, government regulations, and even the rules of commerce. It exists above and beyond all other laws, making it the supreme law. Universal law is not bound by the confines of any country or government. It exists in the universe, not within the imaginary borders of nations. It is a law that stands tall and strong, unaffected by the changes in government rules or commerce regulations. But here's the best part. Universal law is about no loss, no harm, and no damage to any living being. It's about ensuring that all living beings can live freely without the constraints of commercial laws. It's about restoring your universal rights and living a life free from commercial constraints. Remember, under universal law, you're not a citizen of a country, but a citizen of the universe. You are part of the universe, not of any government. You live in the universe, not in an imaginary nation. So universal law is the overarching law that governs all living beings not involved in commerce. Opening, how can one navigate from the realm of commerce to universal law? Well, let's start by unraveling a common scenario. Imagine driving a vehicle. The moment you sit behind the wheel, you become a driver, a role that necessitates a driving license. This is a perfect example of being in the sphere of commerce, where your vehicle even requires a registered number plate. Now let's flip the script. What if you could step outside the commercial sphere? This is where the universal law comes into play. By simply replacing your registered number plate with a Universal Law Community Trust, or ULCT plate, your vehicle transforms into a private conveyance. Suddenly you're no longer a driver but a traveler. No need for a driving license because you're not driving, you're traveling. A subtle but significant shift in terminology that takes you from the commercial to the universal. Let's be clear, however. This doesn't mean you can disregard traffic rules or disregard the safety of others. It simply means that, as a living being, you're conveying yourself from one point to another, outside the commercial realm. It's about recognizing and avoiding the use of commercial terms. It's about understanding that you're part of the universe, not bound by the rules of a specific geographical entity. This transition might not be smooth at first. You may need to explain your stance to law enforcement officers who are unaware of these concepts. But don't worry, with time and patience, it gets easier. Remember, when we're not engaged in commercial transactions, we operate under universal law, a law that transcends all national constitutions and governmental rules. It's a law that prioritizes no loss, no harm, and no damage to any living being. Universal law is like the unseen fabric that binds us all, the ultimate authority that overstands constitutional rules of law because these rules apply to legal fictions, not living beings. Closing. That's how you can transition from the commercial world to a world governed by universal law. So, we've navigated the complex world of UCC and universal law. We've come a long way, unraveling the intricate tapestry of UCC and universal law. We've explored how each has its own jurisdiction, shaping our interactions differently. When you're engaged in commerce, you're under the authority of UCC. And when you're not involved in any commercial activities, you find yourself under the universal law, which takes you completely out of the corporate system. We've seen that driving a vehicle, a commercial term, requires a driver and a driving license. It's part of the world of commerce that also necessitates a registered number plate for your vehicle. However, we've learned that there's a way out of this system. By removing the registered number plate and replacing it with a ULCT plate, your vehicle becomes a private conveyance. It doesn't need to be driven, and therefore no need for a driver or a driving license. We, as living beings, simply convey ourselves from one point to another, traveling in our private conveyance. We've also learned that this shift isn't always straightforward. The system tends to keep this knowledge from its lower rank officers, which means you might need to take time and patience to explain your position. But by recognizing and avoiding commercial terms, you can step out of the world of commerce. When we're not involved in commercial transactions, we operate under the universal law, a law that's above all national constitutions and the rules of law of the United Nations and governments. We are part of the universe, not of any government. We live in the universe, not in an imaginary part of it like a country. We've understood that the universal law, which believes in no loss, no harm, no damage to any living being, overstands the constitutional rules of law. The constitutional rules are applicable on legal fictions or imaginary things like persons. Remember, whether you're involved in commerce or not, understanding these laws can give you a clearer path in your activities.